Chapter 28, verses 201 through 300. 201. You band together in apparent love for the friendship. Do not even know the true parent and sibling love anymore, nor the love for the next ones, but only the doubtful imperiousness love, immodesty love, the stinginess love, and pathological egoism love, as well as the obsession love for riches, for money, for self-benefit, and worldly pleasures. 202. And you many amongst you who enter into purposeful marital bonds. You do not even know the true bond love, but only a purposeful love which is based in winning financial riches or idol-like estimation. So without true love you enter in doubtfulness into a marital bond, and according to whim and pathological need, you break it again, through which neither a permanence nor true love can come about. 203. Just as you only have an apparent love to the truth, so you only feel an apparent love to your life whose high value you disregard, and which you constantly drive to the edge of the death through all sorts of extreme and irresponsible forms of the activity and deeds. 204. All around, the love is for very many of you, those who only cultivate it as illusion, lies and deception, only directed towards profit, riches, estimation, self-presentation, advantages, harm, spitefulness, hostility, and maliciousness, which is why you feign love and characterlessness, whereas there is truthfully only hatred, greed, schadenfreude, pathological craving for revenge, and urge for retaliation, as well as rapacity, pathological craving for profit and exploitation in you. 205. Just as you have made your invented gods, tin gods, and idolized human beings to religions, ideologies, and philosophies, and to a belief, so you have done the same with the love, because for you it is nothing more than a belief and a religion which, just like the supposed love, you also bend and maltreat for your own purpose depending on your requirements and attitude. 206. Truly, you have completely wrongly understood the love and have, through a wide variety of falsifications and distortions, made it into a term of belief and religion, although you know not at all what real love is, because you make it dependent on material things and you exchange it on a whim like dirty shirts. 207. What you call love is everything but love, because true love is the deepest spiritual finite feeling-based connectedness, and love is the absolute certainty of oneself living together and coexisting with everything and everything, thus in all that exists, in fauna and flora, in the fellow human being, in every material and spiritual life form irrespective of its kind, and in the existence of the entire universe, and much more, laws and recommendations. 208. But you amongst you human beings of earth who have the love as belief and religion, if one goes to the true bottom of your so-called real love, then nothing remains in the end but desires, comfort, imagination, vanity, longing for riches and estimation, avarice as well as sexual drives, etc. 209. Truthful love is not only thought and feeling conditioned, but raised through spiritual fine sensitive feelings out of the Gemüt of the spirit realm. And this form of the true love is not simply directed towards what you like, what is pleasant for you, and what brings you joy and a comfortable feeling, but rather it directs itself only according to what joins together with deepest connectedness and certainty of the coexistence and harmony. 210. True love is also true joy and all-embracing happiness and togetherness in the thoughts, feelings, and in the psyche, in which every servility, submissiveness, and hypocrisy is excluded. If it is said through the true prophets, love your enemies, then this means that you shall cultivate a deep connectedness and certainty of the coexistence. And indeed, irrespective of whether your real or apparent enemy openly perceives this or not. 211. Beware of disciplining your real or apparent enemies in order to move them to the cognition, but instead let them know that you are not hostile-minded to them, and that as human beings you feel deeply connected with them, and that you bear neither hatred nor revenge thoughts against them. This alone is love and the cultivation of the fairness to the next one and fellow human being, because consider that true love cannot be separated from fairness, because both belong together, each as its own oneness, and together they again build a oneness. 212. Fairness and the being fair in love require, however, that you do not show inappropriate indulgence to a hostile-minded one so that his or her misbehavior is not increased and that he or she does not go further down the slanting track, because truly it is your duty to point out the misbehavior in love, intellect and rationality, as well as in a peaceful wise in order to not, contrary to the love, bring guilt and hatred upon yourselves. 213. The love of many of you human beings of earth, those who have made it into the belief and into the religion, ideology, or philosophy, you also form it through your unspoken wishes into unworthiness and inertness, and in doing so you deny and defame it in its truthfulness. And indeed in the same wise as you do this with the true truth-bringers, the prophets, the proclaimers, and defame them by accusing them of being weak and indulgent, because they do not preach hatred, war, terror, revenge, and retaliation, but teach you of the true love, harmony, and freedom, and real peace. 214. The sadness which often befalls the true prophets has nothing to do with weakness and indulgence, and is an implicitness for the proclaimers with regard to their high mission and the humankind they are confronted with which they must come to terms against all defamatory and life-threatening attacks of the antagonists who have fallen prey to hatred. 215. But you, those you who do not search for the belief of love nor for the religion of love, but for the true love out of spiritual fine sensitive feelings, you must liberate yourselves from all dogmatic restrictions and in strict consequence, and without any illogical indulgence and weakness, turn to the creational laws and recommendations and follow them. Because it is alone by fulfilling them that you are able to find and build up the true love in you. Be always conscious that true love is no coercion, but must be created and become reality from out of your own free will. 216. Your free will is something special, but in order to be able to explain it, a number of external things must be considered which more or less have an influence on it. In addition, the free will is something about which there is contention even among academics. 217. Your free will absolutely includes your free decision and determination possibility, which is built up upon the responsibility of the laws with regard to fairness. 218. Even if you ask where the free will is in your case, because you believe in godly or tin-godly guidance, predetermination, providence, and in the influences of the stars, in godly or tin-godly punishment, or in a karma, and believe that you, whether you want it or not, are guided or pushed through the life through the powers of a god, tin-god, or a human being raised to a godly idol. This free will is nevertheless given to you, even if you do not want to understand this. 219. You fall seriously upon everything with fervor which talks about the free will, recognizing rightly that it is precisely here that an explanation is required, because the whole of your free will is not understood through the religious, ideological, and philosophical belief, and is also denied through the irrational assumptions and irrational teachings of the neoneurology. 220. But as long as you do not have the truth of the explanation with regard to your free will, you are not able to properly adjust to following the creational laws and recommendations and to assert yourselves in the whole all-embracing creation as that which you really are, namely human beings with a free will. 221. If you, however, do not find the right attitude in the realm of the whole all-embracing creation and to the creation, i.e. the universal consciousness itself, then you remain far from everything existent that it has created and errantly wander about therein without finding the true direction of the life. This is a state in which you find no destination consciousness, because you do not unfold your free will, and as a result let yourselves be pushed, formed, directed, planed, and errantly. Wander about through the life, through your fellow human beings. 222. Your great deficiency with regard to your own free will is that you do not know and do not even have the faintest idea wherein you it is actually located and how it works. This fact alone shows that you have interrupted the connection to your free will and that you have most widely lost it, and that therefore you no longer know where and how you can find it. 223. Truly, you have closed the gate to the cognition and to the understanding of your free will through your purely materialistic good of thoughts and good of feelings. So you undecidedly turn around in a circle and continuously wear yourselves out when you search for the truth and for your free will. 224. Only when you change your thoughts and feelings and you uprightly strive after the effective truth and also want to find it through your free will fresh energy and power come about in you in order to open your closedness. But be certain that even if you scour away your closedness with great power, the way to the truth will still be long, and you will have to continue searching steadily. 225. You must learn to find the way of the truth in yourselves, which is the truth and the culmination point itself. And so you must learn to go the way and to tread it with a steady and unswerving step. Otherwise, it can happen that you indeed see the way, but stagger and stumble along it and keep falling again and again because you're slightly impaired and make missteps. And as a result, you can neither find the real truth nor your free will. 226. You many amongst you who are simple, hard-working, and normal common earth humans without any academic titles, ranks and names and believers with regard to a godhead, a tin god, angel, saint or idolized human being, but also you amongst you who do have high titles, ranks and names, for example, as scientist or neurologist, etc., you show uncomprehension towards the real presence, i.e. the true existence of your free will in a hard-headed wise, and this in total non-understanding of what the free will really is. 227. Truly, the simple explanation for the free will is already given in the expression itself. But because you are complicated in your rationality and in your intellect, you also see the explanation in complicatedness. And the reason for this is that you are not able to perceive the really simple precisely because it is so simple, and therefore you look for the free will, of which you cannot make neither a picture nor an idea, in the wrong place. 228. You human beings of earth who make yourselves thoughts about your free will, you live in imaginations which are in any case always wrong, because imaginations correspond always to illusions, and illusions are nothing but wish pictures, imaginations, castles in the air, worthless things, and self-deception, and they have nothing to do with the truth and reality. The only things that can be right are effective reference points, terms, pictures, and ideas which correspond to the reality but never to imaginations. 229. But because you do make yourselves imaginations which are always wrong and bring disappointments, you also try to explain your own free will through an erroneous imagination that is based therein, that a Goblet-based construction of your brain forces your space and time-bound intellect and the rationality to push the thoughts and feelings in any distinct direction and to determine them. This, however, is a heavy-weighing confoundedness and in no wise corresponds to your free will, but rather is a self-thought-up wrong machination of your not understood will which is bound to your inadequate intellect and to the inadequate rationality. 230. This grave confoundedness creates great erroneous assumptions and builds up a wall against the truth which makes a recognizing and realizing of the same impossible for you, and that you, therefore, also find gaps and contradictions while searching for your free will and are not able to bring logicalness, i.e. logic into the whole, that surprises you tremendously and closes off your intellect and the rationality. 231. Your free will is truthfully, exceedingly drastically connected with the fine fluidal world of the nature of your individuality, which you are capable of forming yourselves, and upon which your will puts its stamp. 232. Your free will stands in direct connection with your consciousness, and therewith also with your thoughts and feelings, and consequently also with your brain, as well as with the fine fluidal realm. 233. Were you not to always grant the suzerainty, i.e. the higher ruling, only to your material intellect, and to the therewith connected rationality in an unrestricted wise, but were also to use the core of your true inner nature which is connected with your own fine fluidal side, then you would be able to recognize your free will and control it consciously. 234. And were you to use and control your free will consciously, then you would recognize the fine fluidal of the core of your inner nature as your real ego, and thus fundamentally determine everything yourselves in complete freedom and in a fully conscious wise and absolutely free of any influences. And this self-determination alone is the crucial factor of your free will. 235. And if you use your self-determination, i.e. your free will, then you will not live in that bound will, which to execute all material purposes is bound to the earthly space and time, and which is determined through your life mode, life circumstances, the norms of the society, through requirements, wishes, desires, and orders of the fellow human beings, as well as through laws and ordinances, etc. 236. The bound will is that which is not self-created, but which affects you through external, material influences and suppresses your own free will and does not let it come to fruition. And this is why you then assume that you do not have your own free will. 237. But if you live with it by only following your bound will, then you do not consciously determine your destiny in the wise that it solely and exclusively comes from you and is formed by you, but instead you determine it by acquiring external influences and bending to the bound will that is having an effect on you and bringing about in this kind and wise your destiny yourselves. 238. Of course, this explanation does not lead to a true comprehension concerning your free will as human beings, because in order to really understand it, it is necessary to know what the free will is fundamentally based on, and the reason for that is anchored in the creational laws and recommendations which are laid out solely on the determination of effects in accordance with the causal law of cause and effect. 239. These laws and recommendations which are formed in fairness are not determining in what you as human beings shall do or refrain from doing through them, as a result of which you would be without free will and determiningly controlled through them. Because to the contrary, they do not determine any of your thoughts, feelings, deeds, and actions, but instead let you determine and decide over them in every respect yourselves, and hence in accordance with your own free will. 240. What is pre-given through the laws and recommendations of the creation are only the effects, namely that certain causes bring about certain effects. Thus, it is only laid down through the laws and recommendations that certain thoughts, feelings, actions, deeds, and modes of functioning as cause bring about with absolute certainty effects corresponding to the cause, in which case you as human beings, however, are free according to your own will to form the cause in the right or wrong, i.e. negative or positive wise, and hence to bring about a right or wrong, i.e. a positive or negative, i.e. good or bad effect. 241. As a vague example, you can use your self-created laws and ordinances, etc., which are given to you in the wise that you can follow them or act contrary to them according to your own choosing, i.e. according to your own free decision and according to your free will. This means that your laws and ordinances, etc., are so formed that you can follow them or disregard them, and they are also based on cause and effect. If you follow them, you create therewith good, positive causes, out of which the effect of the impunity comes, and a life conduct based on the law-following results. One that is rightful, irreproachable, righteous, fairness formed and responsible, and therefore of a good and positive nature. If, on the contrary, you disregard and break your laws and ordinances, then that results in the effect of the punishability and a life conduct of the unright, irresponsibility, unfairness, and unrighteousness, which corresponds to an ungood and negative form. And whether your thoughts, feelings, deeds, actions, and your activity shall be good and positive or bad and negative is something you yourselves decide according to your own choosing and in the full possession of your free will. Because also with regard to the following or non-following of your civil and criminal laws, recommendations, and ordinances, you are not forced to keep to them and follow them, just as is the case with the creational laws and recommendations. You just have to bear the effects that arise out of your self-determined causes, i.e. thoughts, feelings, actions, and deeds, be it in relation to the creational or your human laws and recommendations, i.e. ordinances. 242. With regard to both the creational laws and recommendations as well as your human laws and ordinances, you are free in deciding whether you want to follow them or disregard them, in which case you are also conscious, at least with regard to your earthly human laws and ordinances, etc., that the cause of a breach of the law or ordinance will entail the effect of you being called to account. 243. You can decide yourselves, according to your own free will, whether or not you want to keep to the laws and recommendations of the creation or your earthly human laws and ordinances, because you are not compelled through them to act in the one or otherwise. Thus you decide yourselves what good or bad causes you want to choose and create, and what laudable or evil effects you want to call forth. And you do this entirely according to your own free will, through which you determine yourselves your integration into the good or bad. 244. As a rule, you are not able to recognize in what wise the very often many-sided entanglement of your thoughts, feelings, actions, deeds, and your activity cover the effects of your free will, because you only live in accordance with your superficiality and do not really perceive what fundamentally happens in you, and as a result you cannot analyze your own free will, nor do you recognize, let alone understand it, which is why you wrongly assume that you do not willingly control everything yourselves, but instead would be controlled through cosmic or godly laws. 245. In order to understand the whole of your free will, You must go back to the fine fluidal shell of your free consciousness and to the core of your inner nature, which form the outer edge of the substantialness into which the energy and power of the spiritual sinks, in an impulse-based wise, transferred through your spirit form as well as through the creational laws and recommendations. And this is what you shall be striving for to perceive, because then you will realize that you are not at all what you imagine yourselves to be. 246. Truly, you human beings of Earth do not have the absolute right to the glory of the life, because the right solely consists in you earning it through the evolution of your consciousness by creating in you and around you true love, harmony, freedom, and peace, as well as knowledge and wisdom, and leading your life rightfully in fairness, conscientiousness, righteousness, and responsibility. And this also says that the whole of that which you assume in your incorrectly understood or conceived sense, namely that you are from the ground up true human beings, is entirely wrong, because you are true human beings only when you have developed into them. 247. Fundamentally, you are only sown into the life as human seed, and as this seed you carry everything in you in order to personally consciously develop yourselves into a true human being. But the prerequisite is given that you yourselves create and cultivate the thereto required capabilities and possibilities in you, bring them to a high form, and not let them wither again. 248. Truly, this process of the self-development happens in accordance with your completely free will and in connection with the creation of the capabilities and possibilities, and the entire process is tremendously big, immense, and completely natural in every step of the happening. And for this you are given the creational spiritual energy and power through which you can, according to your own free will, choose a logical or illogical developmental process. So you decide yourselves whether you want to follow the logical, creational laws and recommendations or not, and thus want to bring down fortune or unfortune on you. But consider, also the logic is not absolutely fully developed, rather only in a relative kind and wise, and indeed because there is always only relatively absolute full development, because each development entails another development, each result another result, and indeed entirely in accordance with the law of the causality, that a cause brings forth a distinct effect which in turn is the cause for a further effect, etc. 249. You human beings of Earth as human seed, each of you carries in himself or herself a creation-given spirit form which animates you and your entire consciousness block with creational spiritual energy and power, and through which you are capable of taking in the cosmos electromagnetic life energy. And through the same energy and power, you are also enabled to create all necessary capabilities and possibilities in you. And each one of them carries in it a promise whose fulfillment will absolutely occur if you form everything thereto through your will, i.e. if you bring your self-created capabilities and possibilities to the realization. 250. Learn that the high fine fluidal of the creation gets into the inner nature of your fine fluidal as energy and power. And from this, your own fine fluidal, it undulates into your consciousness and your body, through which you as material human life form also carry creational spiritual energy and power in you. And through the high fine fluidal of the creation, which gets into your fine fluidal and out of this into your consciousness and into your body, you live and evolve in your consciousness, if you learn in a conscious or unconscious wise. 251. The seed of your consciousness evolution germinates and grows only slowly, and indeed in accordance with your conscious efforts, which you must specially create through your free will. But if you do not develop the necessary capabilities and possibilities consciously and willingly, then your efforts will deteriorate and peter out somewhere without them bringing any success and being able to realize themselves. 252. But if you consciously, willingly strive for everything necessary, then the capabilities and possibilities arise in you which you accurately sort and weed out that which is of no value. So you split off the chaff from the good corn. 253. On the whole, this is the way of the developmental process in which your free will is recognizable. But in order to recognize it, the actual developmental process of you human beings of Earth must be followed a bit more deeply, because the fact is that you can, in accordance with your wishes, requirements, and desires, change the course of your thoughts and feelings simply according to your free choosing, i.e. your free will, and give it a new direction if something doesn't please you anymore. But through this you also ripen more and more, because slowly your differentiation ability and also your discernment grow, which ultimately leads to the fact that you become more conscious and more secure and follow a distinct direction. And the choice of the direction, the way, the swinging waves which you are willing to follow will not then remain without a deeper effect in yourselves. And thereby, it is only logical that the direction that you choose, the way that you go, and the swinging waves in which you pulsate in your free will create an interaction which influences you. 254. The pure creational energy and power which you take in through your fine fluidal realm in your consciousness and in the entire consciousness block is pure and noble in itself. And you shall also use the consciousness in this kind and wise according to your free will, and not let it wither through the bound, worldly material will. 255. If you mainly follow your own noble swinging waves, your own good or best-formed ideas, thoughts, feelings, determinations, and decisions, then you therethrough form your free will logically in the right form of the positive, good, and valueful, which finds expression in you yourselves, just as you also carry it forth outwards through your words, actions, deeds, and your activity in general. 256. If you mainly decide through your ideas, thoughts, feelings, determinations, and decisions for the ignoble swinging waves, then these over time influence your free will in such a wise that the negative, bad, and evil kind adheres to it, through which also your individuality becomes formed in the same wise, and you direct your actions, deeds, and all your activity thereupon. The reason for this is that the solely negative, bad, and evil overgrows everything, as a result of which no awakening and blossoming to the effective truth can occur. 257. If you form your free will to the purely evil, negative, bad, unrighteous, irresponsible, to the consciencelessness, and to the unfair, then you bury and suppress in you the creationally formed core of your inner nature while you form its outer nature through your free will into a bad individuality, through which you become a terrible administrator of your creational good, which you carry in the core of your inner nature as creational spiritual form, energy, and power. 258. The core of your inner nature is formed through the creational nature, i.e. its energy and power, with which you shall live in conformity, and therethrough form the outer shell to the best through your own efforts and according to your own free will, because this outer shell of the core of your inner nature is given to you as fundamentally neutral, so that you yourselves can form it as individuality. However, if you carry out this forming process in a wrong wise, by willingly preferring only the evil, bad, and negative, then firstly your will forms itself out of your own free decision and determination. And secondly, out of this results an individuality, which is equivalent to this free will. 259. The energy and power of the will, which is given you from birth onwards, is fundamentally neutral, and as such lies dormant. Therefore, it can be worked on, and so to speak be programmed like a computer. But this means that you yourselves determine the form of your will, that is, whether it shall be really free in accordance with your desire, or whether you enslave it, and leave it to the outer boundedness, through which it withers, and you are enslaved by the bound will which is dictated upon you. 260. This means that you can build up your own free will, and therethrough regulate, decide, and determine all things of your life yourselves, or you can let your material environment and your fellow human beings forcefully impose their will, the bound one, upon you, because truly you yourselves decide how your will shall be formed, and indeed in the negative bad, evil as well as in the positive good, best, and valueful. 261. It follows that you can form and raise your will in full and ample freedom for yourselves, just as you can direct it also into the boundedness and unfreedom of the sinking into the purely substantial, i.e. material, and let it wither. 262. Therefore, it is possible for you to form your swinging waves freely in accordance with your ideas, thoughts, feelings, decisions, and determinations, whether you create your own positive, good or negative and bad free will, or whether you want to let a bound, unfree will be forcefully imposed upon you from the outside. 263. If you choose the negative, bad, evil side of the free will, then you will constantly be exposed to the same kind of temptations and besmirch yourselves therewith if you follow them. In this wise, a consciousness-based restlessness stirs in you, which expresses itself through thoughts and feelings, and therefore through the psyche. Indeed, also the external effects result in the same wise through the purely negative, bad, and evil, and no longer give any room for the noble, because the latter is overgrown, as is the free will, which in its negative or positive form is dependent on your own decisions and determinations, ideas, thoughts, and feelings informed through them. 264. And know, you human beings of earth, each guilt that strikes you and each destiny that is connected with you is of a purely substantial nature, because such is only given within the material creation, i.e. the created creations which have come out of the idea of the creation universal consciousness. Therefore, only as human beings can you load guilt and destiny onto you, whereas your spirit, i.e., your spirit form, which is of creational nature and is only a minuscule part in you, cannot be befallen thereby. So nothing of guilt and destiny can pass over to your spirit, i.e. your spirit form as pure creational energy and power, and also nothing of guilt and destiny can connect to it in any wise. Therefore, only you can, in accordance with your free will, load guilt onto you and bring about a distinct own destiny, in which case you can, however, also liberate yourselves from your guilt again and developmentally change your destiny in accordance with your own free will. This fact does not overturn anything, but confirms only the truth which is given through the creational laws and recommendations. But this truth contradicts the religious belief and the religiously given irrational teachings in which the great truth of all truth can no longer be recognized, as it has been given to you earthly humankind through the true prophets, through the teaching of the prophets, the Goblet of the truth, which is the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, and the teaching of the life. 265. The more conscious you human beings of earth become and progress in your evolution, the more the outer shell of your creationally determined inner nature takes on its form, as a result of which your individuality forms itself in accordance with the core of your inner nature, just as your free will develops according to your therewith growing individuality, through which your free will and your individuality jointly work together in the same form. 266. But if you do not let the shell of your inner nature develop in accordance with the creational kind of the core of your inner nature, and you do not strive for the noble and for the characteristic nature of the core, then your individuality and your will accordingly form themselves in a negative, bad, or evil wise, because in the same wise that you strive for the noble or ignoble, so will the effect be noble or ignoble. 267. From the very beginning onwards the free will is given you, and therefore you can make it, through your own decisions and determinations, negative, bad, evil, or positive, good and noble, so you can also form it to the full freedom or boundedness. 268. In any case, it is always up to you whether you let your free will exist as such and use it consciously, intellectually, and rationally in a logical wise, or whether you make it bound, i.e. unfree and burdened with external influences, so that it is so much disadvantaged that it no longer corresponds to a free will in any wise. 269. In the creation, in the universal consciousness, and in all its created creations, and in everything existent that it has created, one wheel of the happening interlocks into the other. In strict logicalness, one thing is the consequence of another thing, and at the same time controllingly turns everything that is connected with it, through which no irregularity can occur. The whole is like a giant wheelwork, in which from all sides the cogs of the wheels precisely and sharply interlock and incessantly move everything further and drive it forwards to the development. And you human beings of earth, you stand with the decision and determination power given to you through your free will in the middle of this immense machinery, equipped with an unmeasurable might which is given you, and with which you are able to direct the big wheelwork of your own life and destiny in any direction that you choose, that is to your own prosperity or adversity, to your fortune or unfortune, to the negative, bad, evil, terrible, or to the positive, good, depending on how you form, and use your free will. 270. And truly, whatever you do in this respect you only do for yourselves, because you alone lead yourselves upwards or downwards, because for every cause and effect your free will is always the decisive factor, depending on how you form it through your own attitude, decision, and determination. 271. Just as the whole wheelwork of the machinery of the creation does not consist of rigid material, but of living forms, created creations and natures, so your own wheelwork of your inner nature and your entire consciousness block is full of vitality and creates the immense effect of your existence. 272. And your marvelous own wheelwork of your inner nature and your consciousness block is directed towards helping you human beings of Earth and bringing you forward in your evolution, consciously and through your own will. And indeed, as long as you do not squander the might given to you in an intellect and rationality less childish wise, use it wrongly and throw it into the wheelwork of your own machinery as something defective and thus hold back or even destroy everything. 273. Therefore, it is recommended to you to finally integrate yourselves into the creational laws and recommendations so that you finally become what you shall be, namely real and true human beings. 274. To integrate oneself into the creational laws and recommendations in reality means nothing more than understanding their effects and acting through one's own decision and determination and free will. But this in turn means that you help yourselves, in which case this helping is based in your own decision to determine everything yourselves, to rule over everything, and thus to make the own will free, namely to the free will, exactly as it has to be. And that again is a crucial point, because if you follow this guidance, you will change everything for you, because you change inwardly first. 275. Truly, you are thousands of millions of Earth humans, and as a huge mass you actually want a better and good life. But as majority of your humankind, you let yourselves be deceived and guided into the unreal through false teachings of the religions, ideologies, and philosophies, far from any creational law and recommendation-based truth. Thus, it is only natural that you do not know the creation-given laws and recommendations, and that you cannot follow them, through which you disturb the wheelwork of the happenings around you and your own destiny and shatter many things that are good and valueful before they can even arise. 276. And if you do not rightfully search, trembling and anxious, for the way of the truth in you, which is itself the truth and the culmination point, then you hesitate and fall back into your belief in your God, tin God or idolized human being, through which you again bethink yourselves of the praying, begging, and beseeching to them, and submissively pay homage to them. But because you have already got involved with the truth to a certain degree, you no longer find a way back to the earlier kind of your belief and waver between the world of the creational truth and the world of the religious, sectarian, ideological, or philosophical lie and guidance into the unreal. So you definitively do not find the truth which could bring you help. 277. If you then recognize your failure, you fall into despair and go quickly enraged over to the swearing and to the alleging accusation that there is neither any truthly truth and no effects of the creational laws and recommendations, nor, above all, any creation, if it lets such things happen. But in your rage you forget that it is not the creation and not its laws and recommendations that are responsible for you, but only you all alone with your own free will through which you determine and bring about all and everything that befalls you in terms of happenings and the destiny. 278. And because you do not recognize in all the things of your thoughts and feelings as well as in your general effects and in all your actions and deeds, your own responsibility and the own free will through which you conduct, decide, determine, form, create, and call into the life everything yourselves. So you also do not find the iron strength of the character and of all virtues in everything, as is given through the creational laws and recommendations. Nor do you recognize the might of your own decision and determination capability and therewith of your free will through which you can change everything to the good and best and to the valueful and most valueful. Truly, this has been said to you again and again since time immemorial through all true prophets. But you do not want to listen and to act correctly. 279. You do not want to listen and act, but with childish defiance you demand fairness and forgiveness, even though you do not know who shall give them to you. And if you assume that the creation universal consciousness shall give you fairness and forgiveness, and you then intend to accept it in its greatness and truth, then you are on an evil, irrational way, because truly, you alone are responsible for the fairness and forgiveness. Because in your life you yourselves must give them to you, since you alone are responsible for all and everything for which you need fairness and forgiveness. 280. Consider how and what should the creation do for you according to your imaginations, you who demand fairness and forgiveness from it, given the fact that not the creation is responsible for your thoughts and feelings, for all your activity as well as your actions and deeds, but you alone? Truly, you mock the creation, the universal consciousness, with your belief in a God, tin God, angel, devil, saint, or human being raised to a godly or other idol. And nevertheless, you have the audacity to demand fairness and forgiveness from it. What a characterlessness and degradation. 281. Most amongst you human beings of earth, you who are fools, in your always newly self-wanted blindness, imperiousness, boastfulness, and deafness, you run into your ruin which, through your wrong and self-righteous behavior, you create in blind zeal to your own suffering. 282. You increasingly and obstinately strive towards the wanting to know everything better, and you let yourselves sink deeper and deeper into the deep, dark, and bottomless abyss of the truth unknowledge. 283. Know and consider. Only by searching for the real truth in yourselves and also finding the way of the truth in yourselves, which is the truth and the culmination point itself, can you come to your senses. Therefore, the darkness of the truth unknowledge itself shall be the beginning of the teaching for you, through which you find the truth. Consider that it can be that you perhaps find the way to the real truth of all truth too late, if there is not enough time for you to save you from an evil happening or destiny. Let yourselves finally recognize the truth in yourselves, so that you may also find the real truth of the creation and its laws and recommendations, so that you recognize it, experience and live it, and can tear yourselves loose from the darkness of your truth unknowledge and rise upwards to the light of the truth. Truly, it is high time for you to make yourselves free from your belief in a God, tin God, saint, angel, idolized human being, as well as from your belief in religions, sects, ideologies, and philosophies, and finally turn seriously, consciously, unrestrictedly, and neutrally to the effective truth of all truth, and work with it and make it to your knowledge and to your wisdom. 284. The wisdom is not as you human beings of earth in large numbers, and as self-appointed wise ones show it, even though you are by no means wise. Wisdom only arises once you have, from out of your own inner cognition, made an effective fact your own, and therefore have made it to the living, uncoerced, incontrovertible, and irrefutable inner knowledge, out of which the essence proceeds as wisdom. 285. Thus wisdom comes from out of yourselves, not however out of supposed words of a God, tin God, or human being raised to a godly idol. Nor does it come through priests, angels, or saints, etc. 286. True wisdom is an attestation of your own free will through which, if you consciously willingly strive for it, you can consciously live the becoming, the being, and the passing, and therewith also the truth, and in this wise can also perceive your thoughts, feelings, and spiritual fine-sensitive feelings, through which your activity will in every respect turn into a joyful truth affirmation. 287. And if in you human beings of earth the effective wisdom truthfully develops as essence out of the true knowledge, then you become quiet and do not talk much about it, because you have become a personality of wisdom, in the silent trust in your truthfully knowledge and your equally true wisdom, which can also be called truth trust, with which you are in a solid and secure connection with the creational laws and recommendations, as well as with the energy of the being of the creation universal. Consciousness. 288. And if true wisdom has grown up in you, you do not float about in illusions and fantasies, just as you also do not get into entrancement, do not fall into any belief, and do not fall into uncontrolled passions as well as fanaticism. Going forth in true wisdom also means that you do not only live for the material, but also for the spiritual as well as for the evolution of your consciousness. So you fulfill, once you have created true wisdom, your whole earthly work at all times with fresh courage and healthy senses. And once you have created true wisdom in you, use it as a weapon when you are attacked. Use your clear intellect and your clear rationality in fairness, responsibility, dignity, and righteousness. 289. And even if you have awoken in true wisdom, you shall not be silent and indulgent if an unright is done to you and you incur disadvantage therethrough. Because if you remain silent, you support and strengthen the evil therewith. 290. If your wisdom is great and you recognize that the unright which is being done to you is to your benefit and advantage, then you shall remain silent and let the unright happen, so that the benefit and advantage to you arises out of it. 291. You many amongst you human beings of earth who pretend to be knowing and wise with regard to the effective real truth of all truth. You are not firm in the knowledge and in the truth, because despite of your acceptance of the existence of the real truth, you fear the smile of the doubters and the God and tin God believers. 292. You who pretend to be knowing and wise, but are not firm with regard to the real truth. You only simulate everything in order to shine with it. But truthfully, the deep-reaching knowledge and the real wisdom are embarrassing and uncomfortable for you. 293. You are pseudo-knowing ones and pseudo-wise ones. And you go about quietly and with a meaningless facial expression in order to skip over every conversation which brings up the true knowledge, the truth, and the wisdom. Or else you become embarrassed because you do not know anything concerning the real truth. Hence you keep making concessions according to the behavior of the doubters, believers and inquirers, and tell them what they want to hear. But this is not knowledge and not wisdom, but only falseness, hypocrisy, and conscious denial of the reality of the truth. Because fundamentally you believe in an invented God, tin God, or idolized human being, of whom you cannot, in anxiety and fear, let go, and to whom you secretly pray, beseech and beg, and expect from them everything good and the best for you. 294. If you are halfway educated in the truth knowledge and you nevertheless have wrong consideration for the truth doubters and the God and tin God believers, then you cannot excuse this by saying that their case of the belief is too holy and too serious to them for you to give them an understanding of the real truth and explain it to them, or that you do not want to be the butt of their derision. 295. If you act like that, then that has nothing to do with modesty, but only with effective cowardice. The basic rule of the truth must always be that you shall always come out with it and show your knowledge and that you stand up for the real truth. 296. You must face every human being without fear, and indeed in dignity, and in the consciousness of how this is the due of the truth. 297. Only then, if you openly and honestly stick to the real truth, will the doubters and believers be coerced to moderate themselves and to stop making you the butt of their mockery, through which they betray their own insecurity. 298. Therefore you shall not be fearful when you turn to the truth. Follow it, talk about it, and give explanations. So be it that you do not show any fearful behavior when you have become truthfully in the true knowledge and you have ripened in wisdom, because consider that once fearfulness has been born, it keeps nourishing itself from out of itself, and becomes ever more evil and immense. 299. And truly, you are very many amongst you human beings of earth who cheat yourselves, because you confound the term truth with the word belief, and have therewith given an entirely different meaning to the truth than what the truth really requires. 300. Truly, the effective truth must be alive, and it is alive. And if you want to realize and comprehend it, you must make it to the certainty and therewith to the reality, action, and activity in yourselves.